Jack McAllister's office was a cramped, dimly lit room on the far end of the starbase Orion. The flickering lights barely illuminated the clutter of old datapads, scattered tools, and holographic displays. Jack, a rugged man with piercing blue eyes and a determination that had seen him through countless investigations, hunched over his workstation. His fingers danced over the keyboard, decoding the final lines of a particularly elusive message. Come on," he muttered, his brow furrowed in concentration. The encrypted message had been intercepted by one of his many data spiders, a program designed to sift through the galaxy's vast digital wasteland in search of useful information. A soft chime indicated success. The screen filled with lines of alien script, slowly morphing into something recognizable. Jack leaned closer, his heart pounding. "Athena, translate," he instructed his AI assistant. The sleek, feminine voice of Athena responded immediately. "Translating now, Jack. This might take a moment." Jack tapped his fingers impatiently on the desk, his mind racing. He had been chasing leads on humanity's disappearance for years, ever since that fateful day when billions vanished without a trace. It had become his obsession, driving him from one end of the galaxy to the other. "Translation complete," Athena announced. Displaying message. Jack's eyes scanned the text, his breath catching as he read. It spoke of an alien race known as the Xandrians and hinted at a hidden location, Nexus Prime, where the answers to humanity's fate could be found. Xandrians, Jack whispered, his mind racing. He had heard whispers of them before, an advanced and secretive race, but this was the first solid lead he'd had in years. He pushed back from his desk, pacing the small room. "Athena, cross-reference Nexus Prime with any known Xandrian activity. Processing. Nexus Prime identified. It's an artificial planet, heavily fortified and under Xandrian control. Entry will be highly dangerous." "Dangerous is my middle name," Jack muttered, though he knew Athena didn't appreciate humor. He stopped pacing and faced the display again. "We need to get there." Jack quickly gathered his essentials, his blaster, a few encrypted data drives, and a small device for creating fake identities. He paused at a framed photograph of this family, the only personal item on his desk. He picked it up, tracing the smiling faces with his finger. "I'm doing this for you," he whispered. As he headed towards his ship, the Endeavor, Jack couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and apprehension. This lead could finally answer the burning question that had haunted him for so long. The Endeavor, a sleek silver ship with more speed than firepower, was prepped and ready for departure. Jack climbed aboard and settled into the cockpit, running through the pre-flight checks. "Athena, initiate launch sequence," he commanded. "Launch sequence initiated. All systems nominal," Athena replied. The ship hummed to life, lifting off the docking platform and soaring into the vast expanse of space. Jack set a course for Nexus Prime, his mind racing with possibilities. Could this be the break he had been waiting for? What secrets did the Xandrians hold? As the stars streaked past, Jack's thoughts drifted back to the day of the disappearance. He remembered the chaos, the fear, and the desperation. Families torn apart, entire cities emptied in an instant. He had lost everything: his wife, his children, his friends. The pain of those memories fueled his determination. "Athena, bring up the encrypted message again," Jack said, needing to see it one more time. The text appeared on the screen, and Jack read it slowly, absorbing every word. "Why did they take us? And who the hell are the Xandrians?" He muttered to himself. The message was clear. Humanity's fate was tied to Nexus Prime, and Jack intended to unravel the mystery. He leaned back in his seat, the cold light of the stars reflecting in his eyes. "Hold on, everyone," he whispered to the emptiness. "I'm coming for you." As the Endeavor sped through the void, Jack felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was more than just another lead. It was a chance to bring humanity back from the brink and to find the answers that had eluded him for so long. And he wasn't going to let anything stand in his way. The Endeavor hummed steadily through the vastness of space, its sleek form cutting through the darkness like a blade. Jack McAllister leaned back in his pilot seat, his thoughts heavy with anticipation. The holographic star map displayed Nexus Prime's coordinates, glowing ominously on the screen. "Athena, status report," Jack requested, his voice steady but laced with tension. "All systems operational. Estimated time to Nexus Prime, 12 hours, Athena replied. The AI's calm, precise tones were a stark contrast to Jack's swirling emotions. Jack adjusted his course, his eyes fixed on the stars streaking past. He couldn't afford to let his mind wander. Nexus Prime was a heavily fortified Xandrian stronghold, and slipping past their defenses would require every ounce of his cunning and skill. As the hours ticked by, Jack busied himself with preparations. He checked his blaster, ensuring it was fully charged, and reviewed the schematics of Nexus Prime he had managed to obtain. The artificial planet was a marvel of engineering, with layers of security that would challenge even the most experienced infiltrators. Athena, what do we know about Xandrian defense protocols? Jack asked, scanning the schematics. Xandrian defense systems are among the most advanced in the galaxy. Their patrol ships are equipped with cloaking technology and advanced weaponry. Ground defenses include automated turrets, surveillance drones, and biometric scanners, Athena reported. Jack nodded, absorbing the information. Will he define a weak spot? Something they won't expect. Analyzing potential entry points, Athena said. A moment later, a section of the schematics highlighted in green. This service tunnel leads to an unguarded maintenance hatch. It's our best option for covert entry. Jack studied the highlighted path. Good work, Athena. Plot a course that will bring us in undetected. The Endeavor adjusted its trajectory, slipping into the shadow of a nearby asteroid to avoid detection. Jack took a deep breath, his mind racing through the possible scenarios. He knew this mission was a long shot, but it was the best lead he'd had in years. As Nexus Prime loomed closer, the tension in the cockpit became palpable. Jack's hands moved deftly over the controls, guiding the Endeavor with precision. The artificial planet was a behemoth of metal and light, its surface bristling with defensive installations. We're approaching the service tunnel, Athena announced. Initiating stealth mode. The Endeavor's hull shimmered, its cloaking field activating. The ship slipped into the narrow tunnel, its thrusters barely making a sound. Jack's heart pounded in his chest as he guided the ship through the winding passage, every sense on high alert. Almost there, he muttered, his eyes flicking between the navigation display and the view outside. Finally, the maintenance hatch came into view. Jack brought the Endeavor to a halt, hovering silently in the shadows. Athena prepared the docking sequence. Docking sequence initiated. Hatch will open in 30 seconds. Jack checked his equipment one last time. His blaster was secure and his data drives were safely tucked into his utility belt. He took a deep breath, steadying himself for what lay ahead. The hatch opened with a soft hiss, revealing a narrow, dimly lit corridor. Jack slipped through, his movements swift and silent. He paused, listening for any signs of activity. The corridor was empty, its walls lined with conduits and cables. Stay close, Athena, Jack whispered, his voice barely audible. The AI's interface, a small holographic device, hovered by his shoulder. As Jack moved deeper into the facility, the sense of foreboding grew stronger. He knew he was walking into the heart of Xandrian territory, where one wrong move could spell disaster. But he also knew he had no choice. Humanity's fate depended on him. Jack's mind flashed back to the message he had decoded, the mention of the Xandrians and their mysterious involvement in humanity's disappearance. The questions that had haunted him for so long were finally within reach of answers. He'd reached a junction in the corridor, consulting the schematics. This way, he whispered, turning left. The path led to a service elevator that would take him to the lower levels, where he hoped to find more clues. As he approached the elevator, the lights flickered, and a low hum filled the air. Jack tensed, his hand hovering over his blaster. The elevator doors slid open, revealing an empty cabin. He stepped inside, his senses on high alert. Going down? Athena said, her voice soft but reassuring. The elevator descended smoothly, the hum of machinery the only sound. Jack's mind raced with possibilities, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. He knew this mission was a turning point, the moment that could change everything. As the elevator doors opened, revealing the darkened lower levels of Nexus Prime, Jack took a deep breath. Let's find some answers, he said, stepping into the shadows. And with that, the hunt for humanity's fate truly began. The lower levels of Nexus Prime were a labyrinth of dimly lit corridors and echoing footsteps. Jack Maylister moved cautiously, his blaster held at the ready. The cold metal walls seemed to close in around him, heightening his senses. Every shadow, every flicker of light could conceal a threat. Athena, scan for life forms, Jack whispered, his voice barely audible. Scanning, Athena replied. No immediate threats detected. Proceed with caution. Jack nodded, his eyes darting around the dimly lit space. The facility had an eerie, abandoned feel to it, but he knew better than to let his guard down. He followed the schematics Athena had uploaded, making his way through the winding corridors towards the central control room. As he rounded a corner, Jack's heart skipped a beat. A pair of Xandrian soldiers stood guard outside a heavily fortified door. He pressed himself against the wall, his mind racing. He needed to find a way past them without raising the alarm. Athena, any suggestions? He asked, keeping his voice low. There is a ventilation shaft above you, Athena replied. It leads directly into the control room. You could bypass the guards entirely. Jack looked up, spotting the grate just out of reach. Good thinking, he muttered, holstering his blaster. He grabbed a nearby crate and climbed onto it, prying the grate loose with a small tool. The shaft was narrow and dark, but it provided the cover he needed. Jack crawled through the tight space, his movements slow and deliberate. The sound of his own breathing seemed deafening in the confined space. After what felt like an eternity, Jack reached the end of the shaft. He peered through the grate, his heart pounding. Below him, the control room was a hive of activity. Sandrian technicians moved between consoles, their alien forms illuminated by the glow of holographic displays. Jack carefully removed the grate and lowered himself into the room, landing silently behind a row of consoles. He crouched low, scanning the area for any sign of the information he needed. "Athena, highlight any terminals with relevant data," Jack whispered. Several consoles lit up in response, their screens displaying encrypted files. Jack moved quickly, plugging a data drive into the nearest terminal. He worked with practiced precision, downloading as much information as he could. "Downloading complete," Athena announced. "We need to move." Jack nodded, his pulse quickening. He unplugged the drive and slipped it into his belt, making his way back to the ventilation shaft. Just as he reached the opening, a shout echoed through the room. "Intruder!" Jack cursed under his breath, scrambling into the shaft. He'd heard the sound of blaster fire and heavy footsteps behind him. He moved as quickly as the cramped space allowed, his heart racing. "Athena, activate countermeasures," Jack ordered. "Deploying countermeasures," Athena replied. A series of small explosions rocked the control room, filling the space with smoke and confusion. Jack used the chaos to his advantage, crawling through the shaft and out the other side. He dropped down into a deserted corridor, his breath coming in ragged gasps. "That was too close," Jack muttered, glancing around to make sure he wasn't followed. He took a moment to steady himself, then continued towards the rendezvous point. The corridors twisted and turned, each one looking more identical than the last. Jack's mind raced with the information he had just stolen. The files contained detailed reports on human experiments, conducted by the Xandrians in secret. The horror of it made his blood boil, but he pushed the anger aside, focusing on the mission. Finally, he reached a small storage room that Athena had marked as a safe zone. He slipped inside, sealing the door behind him. The room was filled with crates and old equipment, providing ample cover. "Athena, decrypt the files," Jack said, pulling out the data drive. "Decryption in progress," Athena replied. As he waited, Jack couldn't help but think about the families torn apart, the lives destroyed by the Xandrians' actions. This was more than just a mission now. It was a quest for justice, for all the people who had disappeared and for his own family. "Decryption complete," Athena announced, displaying data. The holographic display lit up, revealing a series of documents and videos. Jack's eyes widened as he scanned the information. The Xandrians had been abducting humans for years, conducting experiments to harness their unique biological traits. The scale of the operation was staggering. "We need to get this information to the Galactic Council," Jack said, his voice steely with determination. "They need to know what the Xandrians have been doing." As he prepared to leave, a thought struck him. If the Xandrians were willing to go to such lengths, what else were they hiding? The answers were here, on Nexus Prime, and Jack was determined to uncover them all. With renewed purpose, he set out into the shadows, ready to expose the truth and bring justice to humanity. Jack Malister navigated through Nexus Prime with renewed vigor, his resolve sealed by the horrific revelations of the decrypted files. The Xandrians' twisted experiments on humans fueled his determination. The corridors of the alien stronghold twisted and turned, each step taking him deeper into the heart of the fortress. "Athena, any signs of pursuit?" Jack whispered, his eyes scanning the shadows. "None detected. You're clear for now," Athena replied. Jack pressed on, his senses on high alert. He knew he needed more than just the decrypted data to bring the Xandrians to justice. He needed concrete evidence, something undeniable. His goal was a hidden lab, a place mentioned in the decrypted files as the epicenter of the experiments. As he moved silently through the corridors, Jack's mind wandered to his family. The thought of his wife and children kept him going. They were gone, but their memory was a beacon in the darkness, guiding him forward. Finally, he reached a heavily guarded door. The lab was just beyond. Jack studied the guards, noting their patrol patterns. "Athena, create a distraction." "Deploying decoy drones," Athena replied. Small, spherical drones rolled out of Jack's pack and zipped down the corridor, emitting flashes of light and simulated explosions. The guards scrambled, chasing the decoys and leaving the door unguarded. Jack moved quickly, overriding the door's security system with Athena's help. The door slid open and Jack slipped inside, sealing it behind him. The lab was a sterile clinical space, filled with rows of containment units and advanced alien technology. The hum of machinery filled the air, a stark contrast to the eerie silence of the corridors. Jack moved between the containment units, his heart sinking as he saw the occupants, humans in various states of consciousness trapped in glass chambers. Some were hooked up to strange devices, their faces contorted in pain. "Athena, start recording," Jack said, his voice tight with anger. "We need to document everything." "Recording initiated," Athena replied. Jack moved through the lab, capturing footage of the horrors within. He paused at a control console, accessing the system with Athena's help. Files on the experiments, detailed logs, and video feeds filled the screen. He copied everything to his data drives, determined to expose the Exandrians' crimes. As he worked, a soft moan caught his attention. Jack turned to see a young woman in one of the chambers, her eyes fluttering open. She looked at him, her expression a mix of fear and hope. "Hang on," Jack said, moving to her chamber. He tapped into the control panel, overriding the locks. The chamber hissed open and Jack helped her out. Who are you?" she asked, her voice weak. "Jack McAllister? I'm here to stop this," he replied, offering her a reassuring smile. "Can you walk?" She nodded, though she was unsteady on her feet. "I think so. My name is Alara." "Stay close, Alara. We're getting out of here," Jack said, guiding her towards the door. "Athena, any escape routes?" "There's a maintenance tunnel 2 levels down. It's unguarded," Athena informed him. Jack led Alara through the lab, his mind racing. The Exandrians would soon realize their lab was compromised. They needed to move fast. As they reached the door, it slid open to reveal a squad of Exandrian soldiers. Jack's hand shot to his blaster, but Alara's eyes glowed with a strange light. She raised her hand, and the soldiers were thrown back by an invisible force. "Go!" Alara shouted, her voice filled with newfound strength. Jack didn't hesitate, pulling her along as they ran through the corridors. "What was that?" he asked, glancing at her in astonishment. "I don't know," Alara replied, her voice trembling. "They did something to me. I can feel it. We'll figure it out later. Right now, we need to get to that tunnel," Jack said, pushing forward. They reached the maintenance tunnel, slipping inside just as alarms began to blare. Jack sealed the hatch behind them, his heart pounding. They were safe for now. "Athena, guide us out of here," Jack ordered, his mind racing with the implications of what he had just witnessed. As they made their way through the tunnel, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that Alara was the key to understanding the Exandrians' experiments. She had powers, abilities that defied explanation, and he was determined to protect her no matter what. The tunnel led them to a hidden exit, and they emerged into the cool night air of an alien landscape. The stars shone brightly overhead, a stark contrast to the darkness they had just escaped. Jack took a deep breath, feeling a mix of relief and resolve. "We did it," he said, looking at Alara. She nodded, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "What now?" "Now, we expose the truth," Jack replied, his voice filled with determination. "And we bring them down." With the evidence in hand and Alara by his side, Jack knew the fight was far from over. But he was ready. For humanity, for his family, and for all those who had suffered. The Exandrians would pay for their crimes, and justice would be served. The cool night air was a welcome relief as Jack and Alara made their way through the alien landscape. The stars glittered overhead, a silent promise of freedom. Jack kept a firm grip on Alara's hand, guiding her through the rocky terrain towards the rendezvous point where Captain Vorak's ship awaited. "Athena, any signs of pursuit?" Jack asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "None detected, but we should keep moving. The Exandrians won't give up easily," Athena replied. Jack nodded, his eyes scanning the horizon. The ship was just ahead, hidden behind a cluster of jagged rocks. They quickened their pace, every step taking them closer to safety. As they neared the ship, a sudden rustling noise made Jack freeze. He motioned for Alara to stay low, his blaster at the ready. From the shadows emerged Captain Vorak, his reptilian eyes gleaming in the moonlight. "McAllister, you made it," Vorak said, his voice a low rumble. "And he brought company." "This is Alara," Jack said, helping her to her feet. "She's been through a lot. We need to get her to safety." Vorak nodded, his expression serious. "We've secured the data, but the Exandrians are mobilizing. We need to leave now." As they boarded the ship, Jack felt a wave of relief wash over him. They were almost out of danger, but as the engines roared to life, the ship's sensors lit up with incoming signals. "Exandrian fighters inbound," Athena warned. Vorak cursed under his breath, his hands flying over the controls. "Brace yourselves. This is going to be rough." The ship lifted off the ground, speeding into the night sky. Jack watched the monitors, his heart pounding. The Exandrian fighters closed in, their sleek forms slicing through the darkness. "Jack, Get to the turret, Vorak ordered. We need to hold them off until we reach hyperspace. Jack sprinted to the turret, strapping himself in. He took a deep breath, his hands steady on the controls. The targeting reticle lit up, and he fired, the ship shaking with the force of the blasts. The first Standarian fighter exploded in a burst of light, but more were on their tail. Alara watched from the cockpit, her face pale but determined. I can help, she said, her voice firm. Alara, it's too dangerous, Jack called out, focusing on the next target. No, Jack, I can feel it. I have to try, she insisted, stepping towards the control panel. Vorak glanced at her, then back at Jack. Let her try, he said. We need every advantage we can get. Alara placed her hands on the control panel, her eyes glowing with that same strange light. The ship's systems responded, the energy readings spiking. She concentrated, her face a mask of determination. Hold on, she cried, her voice echoing with power. The ship surged forward, a wave of energy propelling them faster than before. The Xandrian fighters struggled to keep up, their weapons firing wildly. Jack took out another fighter, the explosion lighting up the night. We're almost there, Vorak shouted, his eyes fixed on the hyperspace coordinates. Alara's strength began to wane, but she held on, her hands trembling. I can do this, she whispered, more herself than anyone else. The ship shuddered as a blast from the remaining fighters hit their shields. Jack gritted his teeth, firing back with everything he had. The last fighter exploded and Vorak slammed the hyperspace lever. In an instant, the stars stretched into lines of light and they were safe. Jack sagged in his seat, his heart pounding. He unstrapped himself and rushed to Alara's side. She was pale and exhausted, but she managed a weak smile. You did it, Jack said, his voice filled with awe. We did it, Alara corrected, her eyes bright despite her fatigue. Vorak turned to face them, a rare smile on his reptilian features. We have what we need. The Galactic Council will see the truth now. The Xandrians will pay for their crimes. Jack nodded, the weight of their victory settling over him. This is just the beginning. We need to make sure everyone knows what happened. Alara took his hand, her grip surprisingly strong. Together, we can do it. For all those who can't,